Fingal is the fastest growing county in Ireland. We must ensure that we grow sustainably and reduce our emissions and impacts on the environment. At Fingal County Council, we aim to show leadership on climate action and are working with stakeholders to build a new way forward. Fingal County Council has developed an energy management system and has made energy efficiency improvements of 34% across own operations since 2009. We're transitioning to a fully electric fleet. Energy performance contracts will ensure further savings on larger buildings. The energy performance of social housing stock is being improved continually. All new housing estates are being developed to the highest building energy standards. Our energy agency, Kadima, have developed a home energy saving kit which can be borrowed from any Fingal library. Fingal County Council is putting the infrastructure in place to allow people make more sustainable lifestyle choices. We're developing greenways and cycleways through National Transport Authority funding. We're focused on boosting active travel across the county. We're building a stronger, safer network of walking and cycling routes. Our school streets and school zones have inspired more children and parents to walk and cycle to school. We're supporting bike and car sharing schemes. We're also running promotional campaigns to encourage people to walk and cycle. As our coastline is particularly vulnerable to the effects of climate change, the Council is working with all relevant national agencies and local stakeholders to build resilience to coastal change. We aim to find sustainable, effective solutions to complex problems. The Council is working to identify sites where space can be made for floodwater. This can alleviate potential flooding problems, while also improving habitats and water quality. Sustainable urban drainage systems of various scales are being included in new developments. As improvements on historical piped networks, these systems can reduce surface water runoff following heavy rain, improve water quality, and provide an array of biodiversity, amenity, and recreational benefits. In Fingal, we have a vibrant network of regional parks. Parks and open spaces combine a range of functions, including habitat for biodiversity, carbon storage, water management, and amenity. This network combined provides our green infrastructure, and we are working to continually enhance it. We are increasingly managing areas of grassland as wildflower meadows in line with National Pollinator Plan to provide food sources for pollinating insects. Fingal County Council provides infrastructure to enable people to recycle by providing broom banks and recycling centres. These accept a wide range of materials. In addition, discarded musical instruments and bicycles are being brought back to life. Contactless drinking water fountains are being installed to help reduce single-use plastic bottles. We provide allotments where people can grow their own food and help reduce food waste. We've made a lot of progress, but we have a lot more to do. Join us on the journey to a cleaner, healthier, and more active society here in Fingal.
Welcome to Dublin Climate Action Week 2021. On behalf of Fingal County Council, I'm delighted to welcome you to this climate action themed event. This week, 13th to 19th of September, each of the 4 Dublin local authorities, in partnership with Kadima, Dublin's energy agency, and the Dublin Climate Action Regional Office, CARO, will host a range of online and in-person events across the Dublin region. These events will showcase the ongoing efforts that the Dublin local authorities are making to address climate change. The events aim to inspire, share knowledge, and highlight best practice in taking climate action as we all work towards creating a healthier Dublin. Climate change is a global problem, but it impacts every one of us at a local level. By attending these events, you are increasing your knowledge and awareness of climate action. No action is too big or too small, and taking action together will help us to build a more sustainable future for all citizens across the Dublin region. I hope that you enjoy this event.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for attending today's webinar. We are delighted to welcome you to Fingal's Conscious Cup webinar. My name is Aoife and I will be MC for today's event. Tonight we are joined by Circa Kavanagh from Conscious Cup who will be presenting today's webinar. The questions function has been turned on for this webinar, so please do send in your questions throughout the webinar as there will be a Q&A session at the end. I'll pass you over to Circa now.
Thanks very much, Aoife. I'm delighted to be here, and I'd like to say a special thanks to Caro, Codima and to Fingal. I'm a Fingalian myself, so it's wonderful to be able to have the opportunity to spread the word about the campaign. I'm just going to open up the presentation for today, and I hope you can all see that. So, the Conscious Cup campaign. The campaign originally started back in 2016, just to give you a little bit of background to it. And I'm just welcoming you all here first of all as well. Hopefully there are some Tidy Towns groups and businesses from the area, and I'll be able to give you a flavour for what we've been doing for the last 4 years. As a non-profit organisation, we work to try and eliminate the dependency on single-use packaging, and we aim to encourage reuse over single-use through incentivising behaviour change in the coffee industry by mapping and promoting cafes who reward customers who bring their own reusable cups. We work with and support consumers, hospitality industry, community groups, public-private organisations and educational facilities all over the country. And we've been funded, we're very lucky to be funded since 2017 by the regional waste offices. There are 3 regional waste offices across Ireland, and we've been supported by them through the years to help work with Tidy Towns and various community groups. Before we start, please feel free to type any questions into the Q&A box, and at the end of the session, I will try and answer as many of those questions as I can. And if you'd like to share any story, please feel free to enter in some details there also. Why is reuse so important? Well, there's what we call the waste hierarchy, and within the waste hierarchy, reuse is at the top. We need to move away from our dependency on single-use items because disposable cups and food serviceware typically make up to 70% of front of house waste volume. And that waste isn't just an issue on the streets, it's an issue upstream. And what I mean by upstream is the amount of energy and resources that are used to manufacture, transport single-use items that are perhaps only used for a couple of minutes. And that's what we call a linear economy. A linear economy is where we make, take and throw away items and they have no value. But when we have reuse, we can actually benefit our environment, our climate, and we can also create social norms about how we interact with the products that we use. And more importantly, we can reduce our emissions and our greenhouse gas emissions, because every single order that we place for single-use items has a transport issue attached to it. Water consumption for the washing of reusables is also very minimal. So when you have reusables in the likes of a coffee shop, they generally have what we call a commercial dishwasher. They usually work off a 90-second up to 3-minute cycle, and they're very, very efficient machines to use. Disposables have a greater water consumption footprint by far. So let's talk about policy in the Irish context. And the reason why I'm going to talk about this is because there's an awful lot that's happening in the last year in particular, and it's going to change a number of the dynamics that our businesses operate within. The first is what we call the Waste Action Plan for a Circular Economy, and that's an Irish government-led new waste action plan. It was published in September 2020, and it sets out a range of aims and targets for the state and measures by which these will be achieved. There's actually quite a lot in that document, in the plan, and it covers everything from food waste to textiles, but in terms of single-use coffee cups, It will introduce a 25-cent levy on single-use cups for hot beverages, payable by the consumer to the service provider, and this is due to come into effect in 2022. So one of the things that will happen when that is introduced is that people will perceive that their coffee is more expensive if they continue to engage with single-use packaging, and it's hoped that they will start to bring their own instead. It's really important for coffee shops to get behind reuse as well, because the last thing that they want is for their customers to perceive that the coffee is more expensive as well. So there'll also be the trialling the elimination of coffee cups in selected towns, higher education institutions, transport centres, commercial centres all across Ireland, and the introduction of measures to ban their unnecessary use. And what we mean by that is when you go into a coffee shop that you'll no longer be offered or no longer be able to actually have a disposable cup if you're going to sit in. And what we say is you should sit and sip, or ceramics first should always be the first port of call for people if you're going to sit down and have a coffee. The second aspect to policy is also the Single-Use Plastics Directive, which was transposed into Irish law as recently as July 2021 this year. And it's one of the fastest directives to actually be implemented. It all came about very, very quickly, and it was inspired by the amount of waste that we would see across the beaches all around Europe. The top items were chosen and identified to be introduced as bans. So it sets about preventing and reducing the impact on the environment of certain plastic products. You might ask what those are. So you can see there on the bottom here, the items that are banned are cutlery, such as your forks, knives, spoons, chopsticks, plates, straws, beverage stirrers, and food containers made of expanded polystyrene. So there's a number of products that have effectively been banned. You may still see them in some of the stores across Ireland, and that's inevitable really because it is a case of running stocks down, but there should no longer be a supply into Ireland of these items. And the reason for this happening is partly to do with the litter and the environmental impact on our nature and our biodiversity, but also to promote the transition to a circular economy. An EU-wide ban on single-use products was introduced on the basis that there are alternatives available. So there's no point in banning items if there aren't going to be any alternatives for them. And that's the definition there. If you're just wondering what a single-use plastic item is, it's wholly or partly of plastic and are typically intended to be used just once or for a very short period of time before they are thrown away. So how do we change behaviours? How do we encourage people to engage with reuse, and how do we avoid the litter that we see on the streets? By increasing the visibility of reusables, we can make reuse the norm instead of defaulting to single use. One of the key things that has happened during COVID is that we've had a massive default to single-use packaging. It's visible everywhere. It's visible in the takeaways that we get at home. It's visible on the streets, and any Tidy Towns representative automatically knows the increase of the packaging that they're picking up is the likes of coffee cup lids, coffee cups, and plastic cutlery from the street. But if we can turn that on its head and we can increase that visibility again of people carrying their own reusable cup, instead of carrying a disposable, we could create social norms and we can change our own individual behaviour, which can inspire other people to change their behaviour. It's one of those old adages that behaviour change leads to other behaviour change in others, or as they say, behaviour breeds behaviour. So when ordering takeaways, request that no single-use sachets, condiments, and products like this be included. And in fact, it should really be that we should have to ask for those things instead of them being included in our packaging by default. The Levy and single-use cups will also encourage people to switch to reusables. And we would encourage cafes in your community to join the Conscious Cup campaign, but not just join the Conscious Cup campaign and not just join the map. It is up to the cafes to also promote reusables and encourage their customers to engage in reuse as much as possible. And one of the easy ways to do that as well is by simply, as a barista, asking customers when they come in, would they like to use their reusable cup, or advising them of any incentives that they may have. So you might ask, what's the story with COVID and cups? As we all know, when everything kicked off with COVID, we had an awful lot to deal with, and it's been a very, very difficult road for lots of reasons. For various reasons, including, personal, if people who are personally affected, and then also the businesses who've been affected as well have had to pivot, and they've had to work under immense stress. They're either opening or closing and then working in small confined areas. So it's been a huge amount of stress on the hospitality industry. And while many of the businesses actually stopped accepting reusable cups in March when COVID started because we didn't know what we were dealing with, what we've come to know is that the transmission of the virus from packaging is actually minimal, and we've had no recorded cases of this. So we always go back to evidence after we've enough science and facts to work with. And the Food Safety Authority, what they say is that it is actually up to each individual business to decide on what their policy is around reusables. So there are no bans in place, contrary to the myth that seems to be out there that, coffee cups are banned by an authority. The only people who are actually banning them are the organisations if they feel that they're not ready to come on board. So all over the world, cafes are accepting reusable cups from very conscious consumers who want to practice good habits, and they use a method that's safe for barista, consumer, and planet, and it's called contactless coffee. And in a moment, I'll be able to show you a video about how that works. The Department of the Environment, Climate and Communications, along with Professor Luke O'Neill, who we're used to listening to on News Talk, he has also endorsed contactless coffee. And also there is a Greenpeace document with over 130 epidemiologists worldwide who've actually endorsed the safety of reusables. So that's all of the science around reuse. And all those details can be found on our website in the contactless coffee tab if you're looking to find out any facts and evidence-based information around that. Most chains are actually accepting reusable cups, including hundreds of independents across the country. All of these chains that you see below listed, their logos, they've been accepting cups for quite some time, and some more recently than others, but all of them are. There are very few chains who are left to come back onto the campaign. So I would encourage you to try and use your reusable and have engage with your local cafes. So this is a little video just to explain to you how contactless coffee works.
Hi, Circa, and there's actually no sound on that.
So that's actually a video that was produced by Cloudpicker. Cloudpicker is a coffee roaster, and they have a really good sustainability policy. And the great thing about them producing the video is that it kind of highlights that they're happy to endorse reusables. And also another company who produced a video was Ballet, another coffee roaster. Between them, they supply hundreds of cafes across the country. And I think by illustrating how simple it can be to use your reusable, makes it much easier for us to take on the whole concept. So grassroots movements, through their collective action at a local level, often affect real change within their communities. And this can lead to regional and national systemic change. And that's what happens when we have community groups who work with their own communities because they know the businesses and the people in the areas that they live. They know best. So sometimes it is actually more effective for groups to actually run the campaign in their area than it is for the likes of me, who lives in another county where I can't really engage with each of the cafes on the ground. So What I'd encourage you to do is, if you'd like to increase the number of cafes that are on our map that participate in our campaign, and if you'd like to try and encourage more reusables in your community, I would follow the website link that I have here, and I'll be able to go to the website to show you. Here. You can find. So I hope you can see that here. This is the consciouscup.ie website, and if you go into the website, you'll actually be able to see a resources section, and within the resources section you can drop down into the communities area, and here we have an actual step-by-step guide on how to run a campaign in your community. And there's a process which makes it easy for you to engage with the cafes, and also we've included some new posters which are handy for the business to use. They may decide they want to use their own, but some cafes are very, very busy, so we just thought we would create posters that could easily be printed off and used wherever they like in store, whether it be on the window, whether it be at the counter or on the tables or in the bathrooms. These are handy enough to access, and there's also some social media infographics that can be used as well if they wish to post them too. So
sorry, Circa, it's Janice here. That's actually not showing there on the slide.
Okay. Sorry, just a moment.
That's perfect now.
Great, lovely, thanks. Thanks, Janice. Sorry, so yes, if you go to the consciouscup.ie website, you'll be able to head to the resources section and you can hop down to communities, and within communities we have how to run a campaign, and it's a step-by-step guide which guides you through. There's a range of posters, as I said, and there's actually extra posters that you'll be able to access on the link here. As a tidy town, you may decide you want to print off some of them and show them to the local coffee shops that are in your area. We have the step-by-step guide here, and also when a cafe participates, what we actually do to promote them. We would really encourage the cafes to actually run their own social media about their reusables and their cafe, and tag us, and we can actually amplify that message for them. But the most important audience to get the message to is their own customers, to encourage the uptake of reusables. I update the map every Thursday, so the map has actually been growing quite a lot in the last few weeks, especially. There's really an air of positivity about at the moment. You can hop into the cafe map to see what it's looking like at the moment. It might be a little bit slow to load up, but eventually you should see lots of icons. Fingers crossed. Here we go. So you can really get a picture and a flavour for, you know, the concept of coffee shops are not accepting reusables really doesn't work, because we can see here we've got hundreds of them across the country who are engaged in reuse at the moment. And then we also have Contact Us Coffee, that tab there. And as I said, this tab explains everything around the Food Safety Authority's policy. There's a link there also to the Greenpeace document that was signed by Professor Luke O'Neill, and a couple of different sample videos. This is actually quite a good link you could share with coffee shops as well if you wanted to. On a step-by-step guide about how contactless works. So that's it really. I hope I've guided you through a process there, and if there was any questions, I'd be delighted to take them and try and answer as best I can. I'm just going to stop sharing there.
Thanks for that really informative presentation, Circa. It was great. We've received a few questions so we might jump right into them.
Sure.
When is the levy due on the single-use cups?
So the levy is due to be implemented in 2022. Exactly when in 22, we're not too sure because there is a process for that. But it should be around 25 cents and it'll be on all hot drinks.
Okay, perfect. And then I saw that you had a number of franchises up in one of the slides. Which was the first large franchise that kind of got on board with the campaign?
Oh, well, if we went way back like 4 years ago, I'm trying to remember now. I would say it was Insomnia was one of the first that was on board, actually. Yeah, so it was really, really good. They were actually rewarding customers who brought their own cup anyway. Starbucks was also rewarding customers. So the large chains, a couple of them, because you know, Starbucks is international and they would have been doing this practice already in the States. So Starbucks would have offered 35-cent discount on reusables. Insomnia would offer like 20 extra beans. So they had been promoting reuse for a while.
Okay, and I'm sure by the large ones kind of taking that on board, that smaller coffee shops around did the same then.
Yeah, absolutely. Like when we first started the campaign, actually, it was more independents that we engaged with because it was easier to have conversations with the independents because usually they were owner managed and you could actually have a chat with them and they'd make a decision fairly quickly. Whereas when you're working with a chain, it takes a much longer process to have a decision made. Now, when the decision came eventually, you knew that, you know, there would be lots of stores as a result that would come on board. But they're two kind of different approaches really at the end of the day. But mixed, yeah.
And we've a question in, when is the best time to approach a cafe to get on board with the campaign?
I'd suggest definitely stay away from the busy times, which tend to be, you know, morning up until about 10:30, and then obviously 12:30 to kind of 2:30 would be another busy time. So I'd avoid those times and try and, you know, if you do approach a cafe and you see that the manager is relatively busy, you know, maybe leave it for another time. Alternatively, what you could do is you could go to our Instagram account, which is Conscious Cup campaign, and if you go in there, you'll be able to see, you know, there's actually a picture of there's one of the posts actually, which is of a link in our bio, which shows all of the different buttons that a cafe can press on, you know, to add themselves to the map or to look at posters. And if you could tag them there, it will actually tag your local cafe. It might actually allow them the chance to have a look at what it's all about before you have any conversations. That can be interesting and gives them the chance to do it in their own time as well.
Okay, that's brilliant. We've another question here. Are there any other countries who are leading the charge on promoting the use of reusable cups?
Say that to me again. Sorry, if I was caught reading a question.
No, you're fine. Are there any other countries who are leading the charge on promoting the use of reusable cups, like any other campaign similar to this one?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like to be quite honest with you, we weren't the innovators on this. This was a campaign. This type and style of campaign was already happening in other countries, and that's what inspired us as a group. We'd met on the Zero Waste Ireland Facebook page, and we thought, God, look what's going on in Australia and New Zealand, because they're really into their coffee there, and also in the States. So we had looked at the campaigns in those countries. And from those, we decided, right, we should be able to give this a try in Ireland as well. So we were inspired by what was already happening there. Like reuse is really, really common in Australia and New Zealand. That Australia created the Keep Cup. That's where the brand itself originated.
Okay, it's a fun fact.
So very, very popular there. But, you know, it's a cultural shift as well around reuse too. It does require cultural and systemic change too.
We have another question in. Do you have a target number of members per county?
Yeah, we don't actually. No, we don't. It's difficult to find out what the number of coffee shops are per county, I suppose. It would be great to have a target for each county, all right. Like some of the businesses will be reopening at full scale now in October, so that'll be very exciting for them. And I actually envisage that we'll be very much back to normal with our participants. We had about 2,000 participating cafes prior to COVID. And I would say we're probably up at about 800 now. But I do definitely know that there are other cafes, hundreds of them out there, who are accepting reusable cups. But it's just I don't know about them. And they need to kind of be fed back into us so that we can map them and promote them as well. And yeah.
I guess in that sense, the use of social media is handy for, getting to tag different cafes and tag Conscious Cup in them as well, just to get the message across.
Definitely. Like one of the things I was trying to encourage at one point was heading towards the weekend, that every Friday, if coffee shops could promote about reusables every Friday, it's just that little gentle reinforcement to their audience that, how they can actually participate in reducing their own impact. So a little gentle reminder, such as we offer a discount for reuse, or just highlighting the fact that they may have an incentive for it as well,
We've another question in here as well. Cafes are very good at using Instagram. Is there any messaging they could do to help encourage reusables, I guess, through their own social media account?
Yeah, just like I was saying there, I think every Friday kind of is a good kind of reminder for people, for if cafes could maybe amplify, put the message out on their social media, on Instagram, create video content seems to do really, really well. And if they tag us, tag the Conscious Cup campaign, we'll of course amplify it to a wider audience as well. So it's all about repetition of kind of messaging, really. That's what kind of encourages it as well. Be innovative, if you be as innovative as you like. And one of the other things that's definitely beneficial is to ensure that you and your team, that you walk the talk as well as a cafe. So for instance, a number of cafes that we would work with would actually not allow their employees or their team, including themselves, to have any disposables. So they use their own coffee cups and they use their own water bottles. And actually that really encourage everybody to get behind that now, especially as we head towards October, because October is a national campaign called Reuse Month. So for the whole month of October, there's going to be a lot of messaging around Reuse Month. And that could be anything from, think about very simple things in your life that you can reuse, whether that's having your shoes rehealed, whether that's, looking at reusable nappies, if that's the area that you're in your life at this stage. So there's lots of different ways that we can, be more sustainable through reuse.
And I'm sure, as you mentioned as well, for cafes that they can access the images and resources on the Conscious Cup page, so they can share them then on their own Instagram. They don't have to go looking too far for those resources.
Yeah. You're dead right. Yeah, absolutely. Like there's a link there with infographics for Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter that the cafes can use, and they can just share. And every bit of that information really, really helps. People want to do the right thing. It's sometimes it is challenging and it can be difficult to do the right thing. So every single bit helps.
I think maybe we've one more question here. If you, when you're purchasing your reusable cups, would you tend to buy the glass or the plastic cups, and which would you think is better?
Yeah, good question. I often get asked what's my favorite cup. Well, actually I have a cupboard which has every type of reusable cup you could think of over the years. I've got lots of different types. Just to turn that question back, I always think whatever cup you use is the one that's important. So if you're gonna invest in a cup, invest in the one that you think you're going to keep using all the time. I have a Husky cup. I have a re-cup, I have a keep cup. I have every different type, and I don't actually have a glass one right now, but every one of them I just keep reusing. I never use a single-use coffee cup, and actually it was really, really difficult when COVID first kind of started, because I didn't go out and get coffees at all, actually, you know. I didn't engage in buying takeaway coffees, but yeah, the glass is lovely, and I hear great things about glass cups as well. But whatever you feel is the one that you're going to reuse, that's what's important. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess anything's better than single use at this stage.
Yeah. Yeah, focus less on the material and more on the reusability of a product. And I think sometimes that's where plastic does get a difficult time. But I think it's about reuse as opposed to the material. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's all the time we have for questions this evening, but I'm sure if people have other questions, they can email us at climateaction@fingal.ie or get in touch with Circa, I'm sure through her email info@consciouscup.ie or through their Instagram account as well, that's Conscious Cup. So on behalf of everyone here at Fingal County Council, we want to thank you for attending this evening's webinar, and especially thank Circa for joining us this evening.
Thank you.